Good morning, church. Come on, can we stand to our feet this morning as we sing together? I was buried beneath my shame. Come on, we sing, who could carry it? Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb. It was my tomb. Come on, we believe this morning. Till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. Come on, we sing all my failures. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my tomb. It was my tomb, yeah. Till I met you. When you called my name, then I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness to your glorious day. Yes, we run out. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. To the glorious day, Jesus. Come on, we sing now your mercy. Your mercy has saved my soul. And now your freedom, now your freedom is all that I know. Come on, we sing the old made new. The old made new, yeah. Jesus, when I met you, when you called my name, then I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness to your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. To your glorious day. Into your glorious day, Jesus. Come on, let's lift this up this morning. I needed rescue. My sin was heavy. The chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter. I was an orphan. Now you call me. Come on, let's lift it up. When I was broken, we say, when I was broken, you were my healing. Now your love is the air that I'm breathing. I have a future. My eyes are open. 'Cause when you call my name, then I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness to your glorious day. You call my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. Oh, we worship you, Jesus, into your glorious day. Oh, happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. We are so thankful for you. Hey, come on, can we lift our hands right now in this moment of worship this morning? God, we just give everything to you. We come before you, Jesus, because we know you are faithful. Father of kindness, you have poured out grace. You brought me out of darkness. You filled me with peace. Pure mercy, you're my help in time of need. Yes, He is. Lord, I can't help but sing. Come on, we lift this up. We sing faithful. Faithful. yes and amen. Oh, my God is faithful, and I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness, is your faithfulness. And I will rest, that's right, in your promises. My confidence is your faithful, is your, come on, can we sing this out together? And I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness. I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness. Faithful you are.
children and their children and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family and your children and their children and their children. May his favor be upon you and 1,000 generations, and your family and your children and their children and their children.
May his favor be upon you in 1,000 generations, and your family and your children and their children and their children. May his presence go before you and behind you and beside you, all around you. He's with you, he's with you, he's with you in the morning, in the evening, in your coming and your going, and your weeping and rejoicing. He is for you, 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 he is for May his favor be upon you in 1,000 generations, and your family and your children and their children and their children. May his presence go before you and behind you and beside you, all around you and within you. He is with you, he is with you in the morning, in your coming, in your going, in your weeping and rejoicing. He is for you, he is for you, he is for you, he is for you. Oh, he is for you, he is for
Hey, good morning. Welcome to Christ Church. My name is Allison. I'm one of the pastors on staff here. This is Cassidy, my little girl. You guys can have a seat. Hey, if it's your first time with us, we want to say an extra special welcome to you. We're so glad that you're here. We're so glad that you have decided to join us for church this morning. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms in the room today. And it should be a really good day together. But if it is your first time, we want to say welcome to you. There's a couple of steps that we would love for you to take in order to connect with us, okay? We care about who you are. We care about your story. We care about your family. And we want to connect with you and partner with you. So there's some really easy steps that you can take to connect with us. On your program is a little QR code that you can scan. They're also on the seats in front of you. Just pull out your phone, get the camera out, and just scan one of those, and we'll take really good care of you connecting with you. If you've been coming for a long time and you just want to get connected, we would love that opportunity as well. So go ahead, take that step, and we would love just to know who you are and know your story and be able to tell you how you can connect at our church. If you're here in the room today, there's a really easy step right after our a step you can take right after our service called 10 After. It's just down the hall to the right. You can join us after. It's in a room called Connection Point. And if you pop in there, we'll give you in less than 10 minutes some really easy steps that you can take just to get connected around here. So this church can feel like home for you just as quickly as possible, okay? So listen, we want to acknowledge today that Mother's Day isn't an easy day for everybody. There's those who maybe wish they could be moms. There's those who maybe grew up with not a great mom. There's maybe those who have lost their mom or might just be in a bad place today. And so this morning we want you to know that this is a place for you where you can be real about that, where you can be honest about that, and we want you to know that we're here for you. This is a church where we really want to just get after the disconnected and the unfulfilled and help you find a full life in Jesus. And so no matter what your experience is, no matter what you've walked in here with today, we know that you can experience that full life in Jesus. And so we'd love to continue with our service. Before we do that, there's a couple of things going on just in the life of the church that you need to know. The first thing is we are partnering with an organization called Skylark. If you're not familiar with them, they are a local agency that is a crisis pregnancy center and a sexual health clinic. And so they do some really neat things in our area where they partner with people with some women who get themselves in a crisis. And so it's a really neat organization to partner with. So we have these baby bottles. Can you show them your baby bottle? We have these that you can take out in the lobby. You can stop by the desk out there, grab one of these baby bottles. And what we want you to do is we want you to take it home. In between now and Father's Day, we just want you to put your spare change in it. It's an incredible fundraiser for that organization. It's really easy. So grab one of those baby bottles on your way out today. Make sure you fill it up, and then we'll keep reminding you to bring it back on Father's Day. And it's just an easy way to be for our community, to be for Camden, to be for each other. And so it points people in that right direction. The last thing is that we have something coming up that's really exciting. And dads, this is the best gift you can give to your moms, okay? To your wives that have little kids. It's a week of your kids at summer camp, okay? So it's the best gift you can give, all right? So I'm going to show you a video in just a second of what your kids are going to experience. But it's June 7th through the 11th. It's kindergarten through 8th grade. Are you going? She's going. She doesn't know she's going, but she's going. It's going to be really fun, okay? So June 7th through the 11th, kindergarten through 8th grade. And what we're going to do today is we're going to give away 2 free camp spots, and one in this service and one in the next service, okay? So if you're a mom, we want you to exit out at the end of the service, fill out a little card at the camp desk out there. That will enter you into a drawing, and then we'll announce tomorrow who those are. So we'll give away one in this service and one in next service, a free trip to camp. It's like a $200 and something, $235, I think, $235 deal, and so you're going to want to sign up for that. But we also really, really, really want you to be a part of this, okay? We want you to be a part of it. We want your kids to be a part of it. It's going to be an incredible week for our church, for our community, okay? And so check out this video, and then I'll give you just a little bit of more information. We thought it was over, but it's over. Okay, so it's a super cool opportunity. We are bringing this camp to town. We are hosting them. They bring their own staff with them. They come in, they take over for the week. So there's a couple of opportunities here. If you are somebody who maybe doesn't have kids, but you would like to make an investment in the next generation, you can sponsor a kid to camp. If you are somebody who has extra rooms in your home, their camp staff comes to town and needs places to stay. There's all kinds of opportunities for our church to get behind this and just be for our community and provide an incredible summer for kids. And so be a part of that with us. It's going to be a blast. If you have any questions, I'll probably be out in the lobby, and I would love to help answer those for you. You want to pray? You're going to do it? All right, she's going to pray. People, all right, let's pray for our service, and then we'll continue, okay?
Thank you, God, for the moms. Thank you for making them so they can come to our church. We love them. We pray for them. Amen.
Amen.
Well, good morning, everybody. My name's John. How we doing? Are we good? Awesome, yeah. Hey, I don't know if we welcomed people who are watching online today, but there are people who are traveling. They're with their mom. I know they're tuning in, so thank you guys for joining us today. whether you're doing that now or you're going to catch this later. But again, maybe I missed it, but I don't know that we properly gave a round of applause for our moms. So I think we just want to recognize all the moms in the room today and say thank you for what you do. Like we wouldn't be here without you, right? All right, one other thing before we jump in today. If you're in the room, actually if you're watching at home, you can do this as well, but we're going to take communion together at the end of the message. So if you're a follower of Jesus, you'd like to jump in on that and participate, you'll find that in the back of the seat in front of you. And if you're at home, go grab some bread or wine or whatever you got, juice, and jump in with us at the end. But if you've been tracking with us through the teaching of Jesus, that it's called the Sermon on the Mount. And we've been here a couple of months already now. We're going to be here for a little while. But it's Jesus' announcement that there's a new kingdom, okay? There's this whole new way to live with God. There's a whole new way to live with people. It's entirely different than anything anybody had ever thought of before or ever heard of before. And Jesus started off the whole thing in the very beginning to basically say, everybody's welcome. Right? Everybody's invited. Everybody can kind of get in on this new kingdom, and ordinary people can get in on this. And the way that you actually live in this new kingdom is with a heart of righteousness. And so the last few weeks, we've actually been looking at that to figure out maybe what that means and drilling down on that idea a little bit more. But basically, it's to say that there's two ways you could actually try to go about living this right kind of life. And one over here says, well, you just do it right all the time. Like whatever the laws are, whatever the commands are, all the things that we found in the Old Testament and throughout history where God says do this and don't do that, if I just do it the right way and I do it the right way every time and I don't mess up, unfortunately what was happening, we've learned is that people were basically following the rules, but it's kind of like your child who says, okay, well, I'm standing up on the inside. That's kind of what was happening for people. If you're a parent, you may have had a kid who eventually did the thing that you were asking them to do, right? And they followed the rules, and they actually said yes to you when you asked them to do that thing. But some of you know that they didn't want to do it at all, did they? Like they followed the rules that you laid out for them, and they said yes to do, but some of them, like if you weren't going to threaten, like if you hadn't threatened them with a punishment of some kind, they weren't going to actually do this thing that you asked them to do. And even then, when they actually did conform and do the thing that you asked them to do, you, and some of you parents may not know this, but as somebody who's already survived a lot of parenting years, let me tell you that even when they do conform and do the thing you ask them to do, you end up being the topic of their complaints, and they're plotting, and they're even angry, and when they get together with their friends, they're talking about you. I don't know if you know that or not. But we all know people who did the right thing, right? Hey, they did the right thing, and they appear to be good, and everything seems to be fine on the outside, but their hearts were somewhere else. Because it's possible to actually appear to be good and to follow the rules and yet not be a good person. And we all know people like that. And that's one way to do it. The other way to do it, and the one we've been exploring, is that you actually let God put his righteousness, everything that's good and right and true about him, inside of you. And that happens through faith in Jesus. Then he begins to change us. He begins to transform us and make us into this new person who can live in this kingdom. And last week, I loved this, that after one of the services, I hung out back there under the prayer banner, and we had a kind of a really challenging morning where we talked about divorce and marriage and a lot of stuff that's happening there. And someone came to me after all that, and he just said, hey, it's happening. Like, I want you to know it's happening. You know, I feel it. Like my heart is changing. And I went home and I thought, man, that is like the best thing I could have heard all week, you know, right there. Man, something's happening. I'm changing on the inside. And the amazing thing is that when we have this righteousness of heart, like on the insides of us, our behavior will follow suit. So it's not an outside-in kind of a thing. It's an inside-out kind of a thing. And we've dealt with some really difficult things. We talked about murder one week, but specifically what is underlying, and that's our anger. We talked about adultery. Allison did that, and what's underlying is really our lust. These are heart issues. Last week we talked about marriage and divorce, and what we're going to see today honestly seems a little out of place when you're kind of reading it. Because kind of at first glance, right, it doesn't seem to actually fit even in the same zip code as the other things we've talked about, but Jesus seemed to think that it is just as important, and it has to do with our words, like the truth, right? Honesty and what God values. So let's warm up a little bit before we get started. And if I was to say, what is like the biggest lie that you've ever heard before? And you think back throughout history, or you think about, what's happened in your own life, or maybe what's like the most famous lie that you've ever heard before. Some of us would come up with like an athlete who said, hey, I never touched performance-enhancing drugs, but then 1 year over the next, they're 25 pounds difference, right? Like, well, what happened? I don't know. Or it might be a performing artist, and I'm going to date myself a little bit. The one I think of all the time is Milli Vanilli. Any fans here? Like, you're from the 80s? It's like, these guys lip-synced albums, okay? They lip-synced concerts. And even after they were discovered, they continued to tour for another year. That's a pretty good one right there. Or politicians who said, I did not hail, or I did not have sexual relations with that woman. Or honestly, look, as soon as I started thinking about it, the list just got longer and longer and longer, okay? I tend to always think about a reporter from the New York Times named Jason Blair. I don't know if this name sounds familiar to anybody or not, but you have to go back to 2003, in which he resigned after confessing that he actually made up stories. He wrote about fictional characters. He actually wrote about places that don't even appear on a map anywhere. And they found that he had committed fraud, plagiarism, and inaccuracy in 36 out of 73 stories that he wrote for the New York Times. Now, what's fascinating to me about all is that after all that, only a year afterwards, he wrote what he called a tell-all book called Memoirs, okay? And I'm just thinking, okay, I actually looked it up this morning when I got here because it was just troubling me. Like, how many copies of this thing did he sell? Well, not very many, okay? And that's not surprising to me at all, because who would want to read a book and after every anecdote and personal story sit there and go, I wonder if that's true? So it's a good thing that we have fact checkers now, isn't it, that can comb through like speeches and stories and articles and social media posts to help us distinguish between truth and error. And of course, a lot of you have the same question I have, which is, who fact checks the fact checkers? Anybody have that question? By the way, and I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I actually just learned this week that April 2nd is now designated as International Fact-Checking Day. Did anybody know that? I know there's a joke in there somewhere on how it comes the day after April Fool's, but I'm not exactly sure what it is yet. But listen, our struggle with truth-telling seems to start at a really, really early age. Our son, Jordan, was in preschool when his teacher brought him home one day after class, and she came up to the door and she casually asked if it was okay for her to come in and see our new puppies. We've never owned a dog in our life, by the way. To which my wife said, what? We don't have any puppies? Like, where did this come from, right? About the same time, I noticed on the back of a leather recliner in our living room that someone had written the name Jordan in pen. I didn't do it, my wife didn't do it. And so when I questioned him about it, he quickly blamed his younger sister, Jessica, who was maybe not even 3 years old at the time, had no idea how to form letters. But this happens for us so early in our life, doesn't it? Now, before you let yourself off the hook here, someone came up with the most popular lies that we tell. Number one, popular most lie we tell is, everything is fine. And you go, well, that's not really a lie. I just want to get out of the conversation. It's followed by, you liked a gift that you didn't really like. And I think this is appropriate to talk about today on Mother's Day, isn't it? Okay. Okay, you're off the hook today, moms. I'm going to give you permission to just let that one slide. You're too busy to do something. You were late because you were stuck in traffic. You're on your way when you actually haven't even left yet. Why you were late to work, or something about your age. Those are kind of the most popular ones right there. And we're just still warming up, okay? Can you feel it? But can you for a second just imagine reading something online and not having to wonder if parts of it were misleading, or actually if any of it were true? Or you try to imagine sitting over breakfast with a friend after his big offshore fishing trip, right? Or cooking out with friends after their vacation to Greece, and not having to wonder if the fish really was that big, or if they indeed go to a club. This is a reference to Shaq O'Neal, by the way, a club called the Parthenon in Greece, okay? Your kids, can you imagine this for a second, right? If they said they cleaned their room, so it must have happened. Or your employees, hey, I finished the project, it's my best work ever, and you didn't even have to double check them. Or something your spouse said to your boss or your neighbor. But could you just imagine for a second that when someone said something, you didn't have to wonder and you didn't have to actually check? Because, right, we all valued the truth, so we actually told the truth. This is what Jesus is about to set forth for us as the way of life in the kingdom of Jesus. And this is the way it reads in Matthew chapter 5, verse 33. Again, you have heard that it was said to our ancestors. In other words, hey, we're all familiar with this. Everyone knows the law, the Old Testament commands. You must not break your oath, but you must keep your oaths to the Lord. Now, Jesus chooses a really specific example from culture that goes way back to the Old Testament court system. That's what he's talking about here, in which people would take an oath, right? We would take a vow, we would make a promise, an oath to God that then became legally binding in their court system. Now, he's going to use this example to cast a bigger invitation to a life of honesty and truth. But this oath to God was this legally binding kind of a statement. It'd be like signing a contract today, right? That there are consequences for breaking this agreement. Where you're signing a piece of paper and you're essentially saying, okay, I swear to God, I'm going to pay this land off by 2025. And just speaking that thing out loud, invoking the name of God, made it legally binding. And if you didn't keep your word, then they could kick you out, someone could fine you, they would execute justice. So you know if you make an oath that you better actually keep it because, and this is Jesus saying, according to your rules, you all know this ends really badly. And Jesus is about to explain to us that they had to take these oaths because, and this is not any surprise to us, nobody could be trusted. The fact that you have to take an oath in the first place, I think we all would agree, is a good indicator that you're not always honest. So that's the old way, right? If you take an oath and attach God's name to it, you better keep it. And then Jesus says this in verse 34, but I tell you, don't take an oath at all. And he gives us 4 scenarios. Either by heaven, because it's God's throne, or by earth, because it's his footstool, or by Jerusalem, because it's the city of the great king, or do not swear by your head, because you cannot make a single hair white or black. Who's disappointed about that one? Now, vows were encouraged. What was discouraged is not keeping those vows. And Jesus seems to bring a halt to the whole system by what he says here. And something had changed in their culture so that people who wanted to walk the line, right? I'm over here, I'm going to walk the line, I'm not going to use God's name incorrectly, or people who wanted to appear to be believable would still take these oaths. But here's what Jesus is referencing here. He's saying, look, in order to make sure they allowed room to have to not deliver on that promise, they chose substitute words instead of God's name. I don't know if that makes sense to you or not. People did this all the time. They began swearing by something that everybody thought was really important that would give more value or weight to what you're saying. They had told themselves, and this is where Jesus is getting irritated, they told themselves they weren't violating the commands because they didn't actually use God's name. So technically, they hadn't actually made a valid oath. I mean, they could then still, okay, say, all right, I'm a righteous person, right? I did the right thing, and I stayed within the lines, and I'm a good person. It's the ancient version, by the way, of just your kids saying, I promise I'll clean my room, and their fingers are crossed behind their back. That's what we're talking about right here. Swearing by heaven, according to Jesus, is still the same as swearing by God because that's his throne. Swearing by earth is still the same as swearing by God because that's his footstool, Jesus is saying. Swearing by Jerusalem is still the same as swearing by God because that's his city, right? That's where all the kings are. And then swearing by your head and the hairs is still the same to Jesus as swearing by God because all of your hairs, the white and the black and the gray and the purple, he's in charge of all of that as well. That God's king over all is his conclusion, right? So be accountable for what comes out of your mouth. And as a reminder, there's been a couple of weeks throughout this teaching where we've gone back and referenced this idea that comes up later, that what comes out of your mouth really is just an overflow of what's coming out of your heart. So again, could we deal with the heart issue so that what comes out of our mouth is different? It's true and it's honest. And at the core of the teaching for Jesus is this value. It's honesty. It is telling the truth. So don't break your word. Don't manipulate with words. Don't promise if you don't intend to keep it. It's Jesus saying, look, just stop it altogether. All this stuff is really not all that necessary. And I think some of us understand that because we've been on the other side of people's words. Like we lived it, right? We experienced it when someone didn't tell the truth or when someone was dishonest or when they actually intended to manipulate us and deceive us by trying to declare that what they were saying was extra important at the expense of all the things they'd said before that. And then this real subtle other thing. I'm going to take a side road just for a minute because it might be that Jesus is actually taking a jab at religious liars when he actually begins this section by saying, oh, let's talk about the swearing by heaven part. Let's not do that. And here's the way I've kind of processed that the last week, just trying to do a little bit of internal thinking about it, is it's a really, really dangerous kind of a thing that happens to pastors and churches and some Christians where we use the power of Jesus' name to manipulate people. And some of you have experienced that at another place, hopefully not here, so we'll just kind of clear the record where someone says, God told me. Or how about this one? God told me to tell you. I swear by heaven itself, right? I swear by heaven that if you're going to go to hell today if you don't put something in that offering bucket. We've never said that one, by the way. I think you should put something in there, but I'm not going to say you're going to go to hell. I swear, how about this one? I swear by heaven itself that you're going to be healed if you just send an offering. And people would hear that and say, well, I don't want to go to hell, or I want to be healed, and they empty their wallets because someone invoked the name of God. These are empty promises, by the way. They're used to manipulate people and gain a leverage, and Jesus is going, I don't like that. I don't like that when that happens. Don't speak on God's behalf if you're going to lie. Don't tell people God is speaking to you if it's really just you. Listen, we don't do that here. I don't hope you've ever picked up on any of that here before. We don't use the God card to try to gain power over anyone. I'm not going to manipulate you and promise something that we don't intend as if it's God speaking. There's been one or two times I can think of in the last 2.5 years where I said, I almost want to say God's telling me this. I've tried to clarify that for you because I don't want to do this. And I think that's part of maybe what Jesus is getting at. Now, I want to say all this, like, why do we do any of this? Like, why do we do this stuff, right? Why do we have to add extra emphasis to our words and say, you know what, I promise this time. I swear on my grandmother's grave. Here's what's happening when we do this. And I came across an old sermon this week by a now deceased German pastor by the name of Helmut Thielicke. And you're going to have to snap a picture of this on the screen because it's going to be gone. Or better yet, if you have the church app, it's in the notes section. It's just so profound. So take a picture of the screen or again, find this in the notes app. I want you to see what he says. He says, whenever I utter the formula, I swear by God, I'm really saying, now I'm going to mark off an area of absolute truth and put walls around it to cut it off from the muddy floods of untruthfulness and irresponsibility that ordinarily overruns my speech. Okay, that's good stuff right there. In fact, I'm saying even more than this. I'm saying that people are expecting me to lie from the start. And just because they're counting on my lying, I have to bring up these big guns of oaths and words of honor. Man, that's convicting stuff right there. I got to pull up these big guns of saying, I promise and I swear, and this time it's really true, because you're already expecting me to lie from the beginning. Now, here's the question. Could we ever really get to the point that what Jesus says next is a reality? Where he says this, but here's what you got to do. Let your yes mean yes, and your no mean no. Who's heard this before? Let your yes mean yes and your no mean no. Anything more than this is from the evil one. See, there's this old righteousness where I pat myself on the back for not violating God's name. It had entirely dissolved the need for anything close to honesty. Jesus raises the bar to say, okay, well, what if we just said what we mean and then we mean what we say? See, there's this old way where you perform your oaths and you make it and you keep it, but if you don't intend to actually keep it, just change the formula for how you say it. Jesus now going, okay, there's this whole new way where we don't need any of that, because in the kingdom of Jesus, we value honesty and we value truth. In other words, if I say it out loud, it's as good as done, and you can count on it being true. See, you walk out here today, and I'm standing out there in the lobby, and you say to me, hey, that was a great message. And I answer back, I'm glad you were here today. We can both assume that we mean what we've said. At the heart of the matter is that in the kingdom of Jesus, are people of integrity. Right? We're truthful. We're honest. Yes means yes. No means no. How refreshing would that be, huh? Like the world would be a better place if we all just told the truth, wouldn't it? I mean, you read Jesus stuff and you go, okay, the world would be better if we just didn't murder people. Great. The world would be better if we just didn't commit adultery. Fantastic. The world would be better if we didn't have divorce. That's awesome as well. And the world would be better if we all just told the truth. Now, you think back to where we were last week talking about marriage, right? Where two people are standing in front of one another going, okay, I do. What if it meant they really would? Yes, just keep your vows. Do you want to be married to her? Yes. Do you want to be married to him? Yes. And Jesus finishes with a little bit of an insult. All this deception, he says, comes from the evil one. Now, it could mean a lot of different things. I mean, it could go way back, right? You have this serpent way back in the beginning where there's this deceit in the Garden of Eden, and goes back to Genesis, the opening pages of chapter 1, 2, and 3, and you got the serpent or Satan, and he's lying to Adam and Eve, and he's saying, hey, look, God told you not to do that because he knows if you do that, then you're going to find out some things that God knows, and they were convinced that he was telling them the truth, right? They thought, okay, well, maybe God's holding out on us. Maybe God's the one who's lying, and so they broke his command. And then they try to deceive God, and they try to hide, and then they try to cover, and then they begin to blame each other, and it got them what they wanted in the short term, but it literally killed them in the long term. And he started it, but then they followed him. And Jesus continues that thought. Hey, the evil one, right, he's a liar. Like when he opens his mouth, that's the only thing that comes out. You could actually read this in the book of John chapter 8. Jesus calls Satan the father of lies, right? There's no truth whatsoever in him. Maybe it's just this general abstract, idea. I don't know. Or maybe what Jesus is referring to is that this verbal manipulation of other people is truly an evil thing. I think it might be a combination of all that stuff. But just entertain that for a second, right? I mean, maybe the real sin here is what we're doing to other people and how we're affecting them. Maybe Jesus is really pushing back against using people in a way that manipulates and confuses their understanding of what's really going on. See, every time I deceive someone, every time I try to manipulate with my words, every time I'm less than honest or I'm just completely untruthful, I take the power of decision-making out of your hands. I don't let you decide what the real situation is. I'm telling you what the situation is. But what would happen if we actually respected people enough to say yes and no, and then let them decide what's true? See, people in the kingdom of Jesus are so honest and truthful, that's what he's getting at, that there's no need to convince anyone you might not be telling the truth. All you have to do is say yes or no. So, how do we tell the truth? And we'll just give this a couple of minutes. How do we tell the truth in a culture that seems to be built around deception? How do we live as honest people right now in a world that's always promising to deliver? You know what I mean, right? The media or politicians. I mean, do you believe world leaders when they actually shake hands? I don't know. We're bombarded with advertising and marketing all the time, right? Hey, do this and you're going to lose weight. Take this and you're going to age more slowly. And then there's our own personal deception to convince you we're actually telling the truth. We have all these tendencies, don't we, right? At times to seem sincere or to try to impress or to manipulate people to accept what we're saying. We do this a variety of ways, don't we? I mean, one of the ways we do it is we embellish. You know what I'm talking about? Like the fish story, that's what I'm talking about. This happens in church circles as well. I'm in a lot of conversations with other pastors. Whenever somebody says, how is it going? Do you know what they're asking? They're asking one single thing. How many people are coming? That's all they want to know. How many people are, how's it going in this new world for you? Well, I'm tired and I'm frustrated. No. How's it really going? Oh, okay. Well, how many people are coming? I don't know. We don't really count very well. That's an unacceptable answer, by the way, for people. I'm with a group of people in Michigan 2 weeks ago. I was on a phone call last week with a lot of other different kinds of pastors. And in the same way that the fish gets bigger every time, let me tell you what happens. Our attendance grows larger. Somebody baptized, or what was it? On Easter, I have a friend, Hey, 90 people accepted Christ, and then 3 weeks later, 15 are baptized. I go, that doesn't add up to me. That doesn't work for me. Girlfriends are more beautiful over time, by the way. We embellish. That's what we do. We're careless. A lot of us are careless. Maybe it's not intentional, right? Hey, did you say that was number one or that was number two? Or have you ever had someone come to you? Maybe this is just me. Okay, this is me. Maybe you've had somebody come to you and complain and saying, a lot of people are saying, and when it's really not a lot of people, it's just you and your wife. We use deceit, right? Hey, maybe you saw this past week a senator in Ohio. He's on a Zoom call. He tried to green screen himself to appear that he was in his home office on this Zoom call, but he's actually in the car driving. You can see the seatbelt, and he's checking traffic the whole time. And they're discussing a bill that would mandate penalties for distracted drivers. Google that one. We do this in our conversations, okay? We do this in our conversations. A doctor by the name of Bella DePaulo is a psychologist at the University of Virginia, did some research on all this. She concluded that 1/5, okay, 20% of all of our social exchanges that last for at least 10 minutes contain untruthfulness and dishonesty. She said, typically, women will tend to hide the truth to avoid hurting feelings. Men tend to hide the truth to impress. Okay? As a matter of fact, men will have 8 times as many self-oriented lies as we will lies about other people. And here's the question we have to ask. Why do I do this? Why do we do this? Now, there's some easy explanations for why we try to hide the truth, right? Avoid punishment, receive a reward that's not easily attainable, you know what I mean? Instead of studying for the test, I cheated, we'll do that. I got a promotion, I got it the fast way. I'm going to cover for someone else, right? I'm going to get out of an awkward situation to avoid embarrassment. I'm going to maintain my privacy. I'm going to exercise power over other people by controlling the information, which might be the most dangerous motive for being dishonest. It's actually came across these words from a Dr. Henry Cloud in his book about marriage, Boundaries in Marriage, where he says the act of lying is much more damaging than the things being lied about, because lying undermines the knowing of one another and the connection itself. Now, you take those reasons, and there are some deeper reasons why we hide the truth. It might be shame or to cover something. Hey, I swear I didn't, right? As a way to convince you not to believe what is true, because you might not accept me or like me. It might be fear, right? Well, what if you get angry? Or what if you take away your love? And some of us do this consistently, and it's just a MO for us, because there's this life that we live where we've never felt safe before, and we prefer hiding. There's lots of reasons, but let's get to the deeper questions, okay? What is really going on inside of a person that allows them to be dishonest? What's really happening in a person's heart by which they would flat out lie or to shade the truth or to deceive? How about this? What's going on in my heart, right, where I tend to try to make myself appear to be someone that I'm not? Someone that you like, someone that's more successful, someone that's more whatever, you can fill in the blank. When I am dissatisfied, and I think this is true, when I'm dissatisfied with what I have, I tend to try to make myself appear to be someone who has more or different than I am. So I try to look better than I am or to have something that will make you accept me or think better of me. And this is my grand conclusion. I don't know if I can verify this anywhere or not, but when I struggle with truth, it will fall along one of two lines. It is a matter of who I am or is a matter of what I have. See, when you struggle ultimately with who you are and what you have, the ultimate struggle is an issue with God. I am concerned about what people think about me. I'm concerned if God could actually handle something. And so every lie, every time I mask, every misrepresentation, every deception, every shading of the truth can be traced back to my lack of trust in God. See, the issue is inside of me, right? But it's with God, and the harm and damage is done to other people. Now, I've said this the last couple of weeks that God's laws and commands and ways are there to provide for us, and they are there to protect us, right? Protect us from and provide for. Protect us from the people who are dishonest and untruthful. Provide for us a peace of mind and some freedom. And God's commands are there ultimately to help us see something about himself. Namely, that God values honesty because he's trustworthy. Right? God values telling the truth because he is the truth. So, I want to land in a much different spot. It's going to seem like a real course change for us. But I want us to take communion together, and here's how I want to set it up. Just give me about 3 minutes. Jesus said that some of the most difficult parts of the teaching that we've looked at in the last couple of weeks. For some of us, we came to today's text and we go, whew, okay, a breather. And others of us go, oh no, this is the most difficult one. So it's been tough for me to kind of work through this stuff every single week. I know it's been challenging for you all. And some of us in the last few weeks, we've become very aware of how far from perfect we really are. And going through this sermon, I said all along, it's going to be a journey, right? And it's going to be difficult. And some weeks we're going to go, I don't like that. I wish you hadn't have said that. Oh, that really hurts. And some of us are thinking things like, I don't know if I can keep up. I already messed up. Or I don't want to hear anymore. Let's just move on. I cannot handle any more Jesus. No show of hands, okay? So I just want to hit pause for a minute because we began this thing months ago talking about the kind of people that Jesus invites into the kingdom. Right? They're down, they're out, the people who have absolutely nothing to offer, the people, if we lined up against the wall, we'd actually be picked last, the ones who have no one to impress, and we couldn't do it if we tried. You remember this? Jesus goes, you're blessed. You're the blessed ones, not the people we always thought about, not the people who appear to have it together, the people who do not have it together, and we know we don't have it together. You're blessed, right? The weak, the hurting, those who come up short. You have the favor of God in your life in the kingdom of Jesus. And everyone can get in on it. And it happens when you know that you don't measure up, but you trust in and you have faith in and you believe that Jesus can do this work in us if we allow him to do it. So maybe you could just relax for a minute. Can we do that? That you don't have to prove anything in these moments. You don't have to deceive anyone to be accepted. You don't have to be dishonest about what you actually bring to the equation because you can't bring anything. You come to Jesus as you are, right? We're willing to receive from from him, he makes us the kind of people that we need to be. And if you believe what Jesus says is true, right? In the kingdom of Jesus, there's no need to deceive each other or to impress the king. Because he's already invited you in. Hey, he's already said, look, I already know about it. I know what's going on. I know who you are. I'm inviting you in. Your position in the kingdom is sustained by him, not by what you do or what you have. And so we must understand that in all of this, what we're getting is a glimpse into the heart of the king, which is just so fascinating to me, right? It means that his yes means yes. It means that his no means no. It means that he always keeps his word, always. He always has. He always will. If he says he'll do it, he'll do it. If he says it'll happen, it'll happen. If he says it's true, then it's true. And that's about you. That's about what you have. And this might sound cheesy or what, but I wrote it down. He cannot cross his fingers because they were nailed to the cross. His ultimate statement that it will happen. So we're going to take these symbols together. We're going to worship. I just want you to be reminded of who he says that you are and what you have. Right? Symbols to remember his promise that he keeps his word. And when you peel back this top layer, you're going to find a wafer of bread. Represents the body of Jesus. You peel back the second layer, you're going to find the juice. It represents the blood of Jesus. That God then raised this Jesus back from the dead, and he gave us this power that we're talking about, right? To live this kind of life as Jesus is the king of our hearts. So maybe we'll just take this together today. You peel back that top layer and you find the wafer of bread. Peel back that next layer, you find the juice. And Jesus, this morning we just come to you and we say thank you that of all the opinions out there in the world, of all the things that we've heard about who we are, what we need to be like, what it looks like to be successful or to have something, God, help us in these moments to receive our truth from you, because you are the truth. When you open your mouth, you speak truth. You can't lie. You can't deceive. You can't even be dishonest if you tried. So God, let us receive today the words of truth from you, that we're much loved sons and daughters of the Most High God today. And God, we're going to trust you to do this work in our hearts today to make us become more like you, so we can live as these people in your kingdom. And we're going to pray this today in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Come on, can we stand up and worship this morning? He is a faithful Father. Come on, we sing together. Father of kindness, you have poured out grace. You brought me out of darkness. You have filled me with peace. Giver of mercy, you're my help in time of need. Lord, I can't help but sing. Come on, we lift this up this morning, faithful you are, faithful forever you will be, faithful you are, all your promises are yes and amen, all your promises are yes and amen. Yes, all your promises are yes and amen. Oh, come on, we sing a beautiful Savior. Beautiful Savior, you have brought me near. You pulled me from the ashes, you've broken every curse. Blessed Redeemer, promises, yes and all your promises, yeah. All your promises are yes and amen. Faithful you are, faithful forever you will be. Faithful you are. All your promises are yes and amen. Oh. All your promises are yes and amen. You are faithful, Jesus, and I will rest in your promises. My confidence is in your faithfulness. And I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness. Is your faithfulness. I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness. I will rest in your promises. My confidence is your faithfulness. Faithful you are, faithful forever you will be. Faithful you are, 'cause all your promises are. When we sing faithful you are, faithful you are, faithful forever you will be. Faithful you are. All your promises are yes and amen. All your promises, Lord. All your promises are yes and amen. Each one of them your promises. All your promises are yes and amen.
Hey, a couple quick reminders before we get out of here. If you're in the room, I'm going to go back there under that banner that says prayer. If you'd like someone to pray with you, I'm going to hang out there for a few minutes. When you go through the lobby, a couple of things. Reminder, baby bottles and camp. And if you are a guest, thanks so much for being here today. Would love the opportunity to have just a few minutes with you down the hallway at Connection Point. Hey, happy Mother's Day one more time. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Sunday. We'll see you next week.
You're maker of all. You're made by none. Even when the tides rise and I'm deep
promise to have my heart. I'm lost to the world, in you forever. Bound in a love that never fades, in a hope that never sways. You'll never let go. This love is wild, wild. You got me reaching for the sky. Now I'm spinning off apart. You'll never let go. This love is wild, wild. We're breaking the silence with heavenly sound, louder than thunder, shaking the ground. If fear comes to find me, I will be found. Here in your presence, your freedom is now. I'm lost to the world, in you forever. Bound in a love that never fades, in a hope that never sways. You'll never let